Hello, my name is Jen Dame, and I did my presentation on the test of word reading efficiency, or the TOWER. So there are two subtests in the TOWER, the first of which is the sight word efficiency test. This test assesses the number of real printed words that the student can identify within 45 seconds. It measures a child's ability to recognize familiar words accurately and fluently. The second test is the phonemic decoding efficiency. This test assesses the number of pronounceable non-words that the child can decode in 45 seconds. There are two forms of each subtest. Both forms are of the same difficulty. If one form is used at a time, the test should take no more than 5 minutes, which includes instructions and practice. The most important use for this test is to monitor growth and fluency of phonemic decoding and sight word reading skills. The test is helpful in identifying children who need more intensive instruction in word reading skills. This could also be a useful test when used as part of a diagnostic battery of tests when determining whether or not a child is eligible to receive special education services. If this test is part of determining eligibility for special education, it is recommended that both forms of each test be administered. Administering both forms of each test will maximize the reliability. The normative summary. So this test was normed on 1,507 people over 30 states. The demographic characteristics that were considered were the geographic region, the gender, race, rural or urban residences, ethnicity, family income, parents' education, and disability. And the age range of this test was 6 years, 0 months to 24 years, 11 months. 3 areas of reliability went into consideration. The first of which is the content sampling. So, internal consistency reliability of all the items on the tower were researched using alternate form reliability. Almost all age groups exceeded 0.90, which is the optimal level. So, both forms of the test were given during one testing session to 13 different age groups. The average score for the subtests and the total were 0.93 to 0.96. So it proved to be more reliable with younger students. The second area of reliability was time sampling. So stability over time reliability was tested using the test-retest method. So the test was given to a group of students. A period of 2 weeks or less was allowed to pass, and the same students were tested again. The results from the 2 tests were then compared to determine their reliability. So the reliability ranged from a low of 0.82 sight word efficiency for a 19-year-old to a high of 0.97 sight word efficiency for 6 to 9-year-olds, with most 17 of the 24 values of or above 0.90. So overall, again, the test proved to be more reliable with the younger students. The ages of 6 to 7 had the best reliability, where the age bracket of 15-year-olds had proved to be least reliable. So the inter-score differences. So 2 staff members from Pro-Ed were randomly scored 30 completed tests. The sample range was from grades 1st through the 12th. The reliability over both subtests and the total was 0.99. So with all of these things considered, I think I think this test will be really reliable when, or if I choose to do it with, for the final project with the student that I am working with, because he is 7, and that age group in this test seems to be extremely reliable. Validity. Again, there were 3 areas of consideration. The first area that I'm going to discuss is the content validity. So, the manual provides specific descriptions on both types of reading skills tested and includes research to support their rationale. So that's rationale for choosing the Tower's subtest formats. The rationale for item selection. Item selection for sight word efficiency subtest was based on the criteria involving frequency of occurrences in printed text, length and complexity of syllables, and the number of syllables. So at the beginning of the test, there will be high-frequency words, and then as the test continues, the words become less frequent and familiar. For the phonemic decoding efficiency subtest, the difficulty of the non-words gradually increases as the test goes on. The number of phonemes and the number of syllables are increased. The conversational analysis. So item difficulty and discrimination. So both of these were addressed in the manual. Discrimination indexes of 0.35 or higher are acceptable. The Tower meets the standard. To assess bias in the Tower, a logistic regression procedure was used to detect differential item functioning. Through this procedure, it was determined that the bias in the subtests had been kept to a minimum. The second area of validity is the criterion prediction validity. The first one is the concurrent validity. The Tower was compared to the Woodcock Reading Mastery Test at 3 different grade levels. So when comparing first grade students' phonemic decoding fluency subtests with the word attack subtest of the Woodcock Reading Mastery Test, there was a correlation of 0.85 on the end of the year scores. With that same group of first grade students, the scores of the sight word efficiency subtest was compared to the word identification subtests, and a correlation of 0.89 was determined. So the scores from the other grades that were tested in the manual further support the correlation of the tests scored between the Tower and the Woodcock Reading Mastery Test. Predictive validity. So measures of whole word reading in the Tower sight word efficiency subtest and the word identification subtests were consistently more strongly related to text reading fluency and accuracy and reading comprehension than are measures of phonemic decoding skills. So this is consistent with the information that was given earlier in the manual, stating that building a strong sight word vocabulary will likely aid students in becoming more fluent readers and support comprehension. The last area of validity that was discussed was the construct identification validity. So areas that were discussed were age differentiation. So the means and standard deviations for the Tower subtests at all 13 age intervals indicate there is a high correlation of age to preference. So the means become larger as the students get older. So essentially, this test was more valid for younger students. So group differentiation. The subgroups that were identified were gender groups, male and female, ethnic groups, so European Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans, and disability groups, so speech and language handicaps and learning disabilities. So all the scores for these groups were in the normal range, except students with the speech and language disabilities performed better on the test than students with learning disabilities. Factor analysis. The two students the two subtests were proven to share a strong correlation in development, but were identified in addressing two separate components of the word reading efficiency. So, available scores on the test. So, age and grade equivalent scores, raw scores, percentiles, and standard scores. The descriptive terms for the standard scores are at the bottom of the slide. Modifications and accommodations. I couldn't find much of anything in the manual addressing this. The only thing that I could find was about prompting. So when a student hesitates for 3 seconds before saying a word or a non-word, the examiner prompts the examinee to go on to the next word to ensure that the examinee attempts as many items as possible. So adaptability for ELL students. I couldn't find any information about this at all in the manual. Pricing of the tower. I located the price on the ProEd website, and the complete kit was priced at $302. Examiner qualifications. The tower can be given by anyone who can read, understand the test manual, and has knowledge of standard assessment procedures. So English is required for proper scoring of the phonemic decoding efficiency subtest. So with these things considered, I do believe that I could administer this test. Testing design. The tower is very easy to understand and administer. The manual describes all aspects of the test, beginning with considerations before the test is administered. The manual walks the examiner through each step. The scoring is also detailed. The manual provides examples and charts that will be helpful when scoring the test. Administration and scoring time. The tower can be administered in 5 minutes if only one of each form is used. And I could not find any information on how long it would take to score. So the review that I did, or found, the review that I reviewed on this test, he addressed, he questioned the subtest word selection and also how they determined the 45 seconds that is allotted for this time. He also thought that he indicated there might be bias with the time, with some populations of students, like students who have a processing delay. This test might prove to be a little biased for them, obviously, because it's a speed test. But he did indicate that the test is easy to administer, and there is a minimal amount of materials that is required. And the test time is very appealing.